All right, you guys, welcome to a very special episode of Pastel Society of Southern California's Theme Thursday. We have a really special guest, someone who has been my mentor since I got out of the military about 25 years ago. I met him at a school that some of us knew as Associates in Art. He took me under his wing and kind of threw me in the deep end when it came to entertainment industry art, and for those of you guys who don't know what that is, well, it's a crazy world of illustration. The deadlines are nuts, but Mike has been seriously, I mean, he's one of the most creative, talented people I know, and so it's a real pleasure to have him here today to do the special episode of a special episode of Theme Thursday. He's got something lined up for you that's really outstanding. And so, without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Mike. Here he is. I'm gonna spotlight for everybody. Hey, Mike, you're on camera. So Mike, before we go into your demo, people want to know maybe how did you get into this whole illustration world for film and entertainment?
Oh, it's a good question. Yeah, I kind of bounced around college for quite a few years, and then sort of ended up at started off as a biochem. That's where direction I wanted to go into, and a few years later, found myself here. So I met somebody who was a really good artist, and he said, "Hey, look, are you interested?" Because I know some people at the missions over at Artist Parsons, and I was like, "Oh, all right." So he goes, "Put them together," because I'll talk to him. So and then my dad did the same thing. He wanted me to go to an oral surgery, but I didn't have the grades and I didn't have the stomach for it. So I went there and watched him, cut up someone's mouth. And then about 20 minutes later, I woke up and I realized I think it's time to go into art. Then I tried boxing and I figured it was better to paint on canvas than bleed. I wasn't very good at that one either. So I transferred over to Art Center after a couple of years, and then I was hired away from my 7th term by B.D. Fox and Friends. They had a contest for entertainment art for a couple of movies they were working on, and I competed. I won the competition, and then they offered me a studio and a job, and I worked for them for a couple of years, 2 years, and then by the time I was 29 or 30, I went freelance and I never went back since. So I've been doing it ever since.
Well, that's phenomenal. Would you say? No, yeah. We're not kidding when we say you've worked on thousands of projects.
Thousands of projects.
And so you guys probably, if you guys got our PSSC email, you saw an image of RoboCop. If you guys are familiar with that, Mike did the poster for RoboCop. He's done so many poster illustrations. He's done just a lot of concept work, and so again, he's just one of the most talented artists I know, and so he's actually published a few books. If you guys aren't familiar with him, you can look him up. Walter Foster. Here's the one of the first ones, right, Mike? Was this one of the first ones?
Yeah.
Can you see it? And then
we knocked that in a little while.
Yeah, and then he did. You know what? Let me make myself look bigger too, so that people can see this. And let me see. All right, here's one. And so this is how to draw vampires, and I'm telling you, it's got some great stuff in here. So really neat if you guys want to get a hold of one of these. And he's also got how to draw zombies. So cool, really cool stuff. So yeah. The other thing too, you guys, is that Mike and I have been working, gosh, I mean, since we pretty much met. He had me help him out in some of his projects, and so I was really honored that he would have me help him out with some projects. So now we're actually working on a board game. So we have a board game in the works, and so if you guys are interested in what we're going to be coming out with very soon in the next few months, our company is known as Mad Monster Company LLC, and the game itself is called Mad Monster Bash. You can actually see us on Instagram if you guys want to follow us. So we'll be giving you guys some heads up on the game itself. The other thing too is that Well, Mike, tell us about what you're gonna be working on today, so that we'll give you a little time so you can get to your drawing table.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this could be one of the characters. We're gonna use this as probably for the website for the game. So we've been working on the board game for about, well, technically a year, but we've been working on it for much longer than, or at least Otto's concept at least years ago. And we finally decided, let's just start a business, doing games. And so tonight's demo is going to be, being Halloween, and we have a Mad Monster Bash company. I thought we'd do a pumpkin king sitting on top of a tombstone with a bunch of skulls around it, and then we'll use that for the game. And then this pumpkin, which used to look really normal, then all of a sudden you realize its face is being torn out of the pumpkin, and it's a horrible creature, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, all right, Mike. Well, you know what? If you want to head on over, do you want to move your camera over? You already got it set up, right?
Yeah, I've got the second camera wouldn't, I got two cameras, but for whatever reason, it wouldn't, even with both the outlets, it wouldn't actually attach the light bar. I'll have to figure out what the software is for, but yeah, give me a second, and I'll get back, and then we'll look at the drawing itself. And I'll talk a little bit about the drawing, and then we'll do a little color on the drawing. I'll block it out tonight, show you guys, sort of my process of how I get to this sort of twisted place that we'll find ourselves later on, and go from there.
All right, cool. Thanks, Mike. In the meantime, we'll talk a little bit about what we do here on Theme Thursdays, and if anybody has any questions at this time, we'll go into the chat right now. So,
okay.
All right, Mike. We'll let you.
Yeah, just give me a few minutes. Yeah, just give me like 5 seconds. I'm almost done. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we'll let you set up.
All right.
All right. All right, guys. Well, Mike's gonna get set up and stuff, and at his drawing table. And so, just to let you guys know, you can find Mike. His website is mikebutkus.pro. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah.
I just
Oh, by the way, do I have to move the camera? Do I leave am I gonna leave this chat? Is that what happens?
No. Just move your, don't. Yeah, if you leave us, you're gonna have to sign back in. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you leave, you're gonna have to sign back in. But can you move the camera without signing
I
out?
have to unplug it.
Oh, you have to unplug it. Yeah, go ahead. I'm not gonna go anywhere. You just,
Okay.
you just plug back in.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, and if you leave, you can just go back to the link. All right. All right. So Christopher, we got a question from Christopher, and I'll ask him your question just a little bit here. But you can find Mike at mikebutkus.pro. That's his website. If you want to follow him on Instagram, it's Mike Butkus, BUTKUS, artist. Mike Butkus art. Is that right? I believe that's his handle. Yeah. You can also find him on Facebook. So Mike is working on a new book, and I'm just, between all the jobs that he's got, he's putting that together. So that's incredibly busy these days. So he's working on some really great projects that you guys will see in the near future. Unfortunately, can't talk about them because of NDAs, but we'll let you guys know when they come out. As far as PSSC goes, you guys, if you want to, we're a non-profit, and if you guys want to join us, our dues are only $30 a year. Our fiscal year is from July 1st until the end of June the next year, and we have some great programs. Like I said, we have a lot, some of the best instructors coming in from around the globe, and so we have in-person workshops as well as Zoom workshops if you guys are interested. Theme Thursdays are open to anybody. You don't have to be a member, so non-member alike. And we come in on every other Thursday. You can find that on our calendar at psccwebsite.org. That's psccwebsite.org. You can look on our calendar. Lupe back here, our webmaster, is really good at posting the events like this one. And you are free to join us every other Thursday. Again, you can look at our calendar, and we pick a theme. It's very casual. We pick a theme, and you can work on that theme if you want, or if you have your own project, you can work on that. Again, it's just a matter of getting artists to meet up and talk art, and to keep each other motivated and stay creative. So if you want to join us, again, that is every other Thursday from 6:30 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. We look forward to seeing you guys here. All right, we're going to wait up on Mike just a little bit here, and then let's look at some of the questions that you guys got here. Okay. Oh, okay, so I saw Christine talking about the weird message box, so she's got that taken care of. Okay, so Christopher, your question for Mike, it says, I love your ability to draw, paint realistic work purely from memory. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how one can improve in that regard. It's my biggest challenge right now. I can draw, paint anything if I can see it, but imagining it from pure memory is very difficult for me. Well, to speak for Mike until he gets back his camera back up, I can tell you that ever since I've known Mike, and when we were at this art school where both of us had studios, Mike is forever drawing, and it's just one of those things. It's like he says, mileage, and I mean, Mike is a beast when it comes to his drawing ability, and that's just because he's been doing it for a very, very long time, and repetitively, to the point where, you know, if you learned like Dave, you know, he can draw an animal much better than I can. That's because he studies an animal to the point where he can draw it from memory. And so Mike, in that same aspect, is just drawing these creatures, and just from doing it over and over, they just evolve. And I mean, I'll wait for him to finish answering that question, but just from what I've observed from working with Mike, I mean, his ability is incredible, but I think that comes again from doing so many drawings.
Hey, Otto, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear Mike.
Okay, I don't know why I can see the drawing, but for some reason the video.
But there it goes. You're up.
Let me do a close up of it, and then you guys can take a look.
I'm going to remove my spotlight so people can see your screen bigger.
Oops. Sorry about the zoom's a little bit different than if you're filming, so it's.
No, that's fine.
Okay, and I can start right here.
Hey, Mike, can you go up and down just so everybody can see this whole concept?
Yeah, let me just pull back.
And then take a minute just to focus. There you go.
Let me see. Let me get a more light on this. That might help too. So we can scroll down.
Wow. How big is that drawing, Mike?
I don't know. I think 15 by 20.
About 15 by 20?
Yeah, it took about like an hour and a half to do or something like that. So.
And I'm sorry, this is where I crack up, because Mike, he's not kidding. I mean, he's just that fast. And I mean, something like this for me would just take ages. And so let me see if there's any other questions here, Mike, for you.
Yeah.
Mike, did you hear that question from Christopher Clark?
Yeah, I did. I think you answered it pretty well. I mean, I know a lot of people rely on reference. I mean, most of the stuff I do for movie stuff, it's a movie poster. You can't do a movie poster without great reference. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, they're not going to hire you to do like we're doing Ready Player One. There's a whole cast of characters in both animated, live action, and if they don't play with great reference, you have to have great reference to be able to draw the actors and actresses. But that's where you learn how to do this stuff. So this comes from just understanding drawing, anatomy, life drawing, figure drawing, quick sketch, and then exploring other opportunities in the sense that of like, what would this character look at this angle? How does this look foreshortened? How does this look if this is? How can I twist this to make it look more interesting? And that's pretty much where a lot of this my sort of drawing skill comes from, is just being able to kind of imagine stuff. I'm really familiar with the anatomy. If you want to learn anatomy and you want to do it quickly and you want to create characters, a lot of my students, I tell them is just pick up a comic book or some of the drawing books, and it's a great entry level to get to this stage, and you can do it relatively quickly. So,
wow.
But the key is, of course, like with anything else, it's imagination. I don't care if you're shooting your own reference. You don't have an eye to, even if you're doing a portrait or if you're going to do a still life, you have to have an eye for composition and color, and the list goes on. So and that comes with also with mileage. So.
Right. Well, we have a question for you. Christine Whitney is asking, what type of media are you working on? Is that graphite?
Yeah, this is just a number, you can use a number 2 school pencil. I use those all the time, those cheap ones you can buy, 4,000 pencils for 99 cents at the dollar store. They work great. I mean, you can go out and buy a turquoise for $4 if you want to, or you can go buy a Strand Mars. They're not much different. I mean, you have a choice of leads, but when I'm doing a preliminary sketch like this, just a number 2 pencil is fine.
Do you mind zooming in so that people can see that texture that you've got? Because I believe,
Yeah.
am I mistaken? Did you gesso this one, or is just
It's just on raw illustration board.
And that's Crescent, right? Is that Crescent 100, 200?
Crescent cold press. Yeah, it's just an inexpensive board you pick at any art store. So it takes a beating. You can erase on it. You can do stuff. You can gesso it. Doesn't bend too much. It's a great workhorse when it comes to doing, like I'm doing stuff for a lot of gaming stuff. And creating characters. There's a great tooth to it. You can draw fast. You can create these great coarse shadows in there without a lot of effort, because it comes out of your imagination. So but it's based off of life drawing. But the board is again, it's a great workhorse. It's really durable, and I use it for almost all my illustrations. All the stuff I did for Indiana Jones, or I just finished the painting for Starfield, which is a big game for Bethesda. And that was all done on illustration board as well. So,
well, we have Alex Alderete. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Alex. He says, how do you approach blocking those blank shadow shapes? And that's one thing that's always fascinated me about Mike's drawing, how he can isolate shapes to make a drawing that much more interesting. So, Mike, how do you approach blocking those blank shadow shapes?
Well, I can just give you a quick little run through right here. I'll just pick up a blank paper here, and let's go over here, and I'll pull back a little bit. If you guys can see, there's going to be a little bit of shadow on this, but like for the character itself, if I'm gonna design this pumpkinhead creature, right? When I look at it, when I'm designing my character, I'm also looking at the shapes of where large masses are going to work and how they work. And it looks a little sloppy right here, but you'll see in a second that it comes out pretty cool. And like this pumpkin creature, for example, I want something organic. So, and it's a big, crazy, wicked smile. Okay, and then what it is, this really comes back to life drawing. So if you're looking at the eye, come back down here. If you know something about anatomy and you're familiar and you're comfortable with anatomy, I want this to be sort of skull-like.
Do you mind zooming in just a little bit, Mike? I'm sorry, do you mind zooming in just a little bit? Do you mind zooming in a little bit so we can see your drawing?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
It just got a little bleached out, that's all.
Yeah, I can't. Let me just turn off this one light. That might actually help. Is that better?
There you go. That helps.
There we go. Okay. So I'm starting to create some coarse shadows here, like underneath the, excuse me, underneath the cheekbone. Oh, don't mind me, guys. So the family just showed up. They're they're gonna hang out with the dad in the studio. Hang on a second here. Oh, hey guys, come on in, guys. Just do a quick little coarse shadow demo here, and oh no, you guys can sit wherever you guys like. All right, so all right. So now I've just kind of created a little course. I wish I could get close. I wish I could see the values better for you guys. Is that better?
Oh yeah, that's pretty sharp. That's nice.
Okay. Okay, so we'll put the little eye in here. And again, this is just one of those inexpensive pencils you can buy at any thrift shop or whatever it is. And I used to steal them from my kids. And then it's hard for me because I'm just looking at the drawing and not where I'm going with you guys. So
But yeah, you can immediately see that there's nothing rigid about your line work. It's very, very expressive. It's free flowing.
yeah, it's I've got a pretty good idea where I want things to line up, and then I kind of let it. In some ways, I kind of let things just kind of fall into place where I think might be interesting. The tongue will adjust and whip out, and then then sharp teeth. And we'll talk about that, once we start a little bit of the painting too, about how to just add some darker values and then just sort of build on that. And so now you can see it just with a happenstance and just kind of line art, you can start adding all these wrinkles and these teeth, and again, this is really rough, but obviously, but I want to add some wrinkles over here coming in because it's going to come off the creature's shoulder.
Was there any artist, Mike, that specifically influenced you when it came to creature creation? Were there
I think it was
books?
mostly Sargent. No, I'm kidding. I thought Rembrandt had some pretty amazing stuff as well. But there's quite a few guys, but I think most of the stuff came from when I was a kid. I just loved characters and creatures, and I loved all those all the Bela Lugosi films and all that kind of cool stuff. And I was like, I like Frisetta, of course, when I was a kid, and but what I did is I took the same principles as like what Frisetta was doing, because he had such a great sense of anatomy, at least cartoony anatomy. And then I combine that with Loomis and Bridgman and painting styles like McGuinness, or and then adding that with like other artists too that were contemporary at the time, like Bernie Fuchs or Michael Dudash or some of those guys, and then just kind of adapting it to a more painterly style, and it seemed to work really well. So but anyways, so yeah, to answer your questions, I usually come up with like again, creating some of the core shadows first. I know where they're going to go, and then gradate those shapes. Big fat lip down below. Is this thing? Its neck is sort of being.
Oh, can you creep out just a little bit, Mike? Can you zoom out? Yeah. There you go. Oh, there you go.
All right. So and I'm constantly, in the drawing, I have an idea in my head what I'm going to do, and then I'm kind of constantly, readjusting it. So like today, when I first started this, I was like, all right, where am I going to go with this thing? I kind of had an idea, like, all right, I want this dude on a Pumpkin King, just kind of sitting there waiting for his next victim in this graveyard, and then they walk up, they think it's a statue or something, and all of a sudden this horrifying face pops out of this old rotted pumpkin, and and so that was the premise of the drawing. And Halloween plus our game board.
Yeah.
So start adding texture like this. And, you want the and I also wanted it coming out of the pumpkin. It's like there's a whole separate entity that exists within this this little creepy dude. So yeah, so this gives you just kind of this is just kind of a rough idea of how it sort of works, and then then the body, the arm will come across like this. This, and then the back will let me pull out. You guys can see. And I constantly change my pencil shape to if I'm drawing from the side, or because it adds all these really great lines and creates these great little sort of shapes that normally wouldn't exist if you're just sitting there going like this and noodling it. So you really want to get in there and just have some fun and let your pencil do some of the work itself.
Can you bring us in just a tad, Mike? For some reason, it seems like the camera's having issues focusing.
Here.
Like it wants to focus on the left drawing versus the right drawing.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Let's just put it right here. How's that work?
Yeah.
And then I can adjust this and pull it up a little bit more. So that way you get a kind of compare and contrast between the two. So, the central focus on these right here is going to be, of course, is going to be the large masses, which is going to be the orbits of the eyes, and of course the mouth, and then of course the wicked tongue. Okay, and then I'm going to have this.
So I'm sure you guys are familiar with Star Wars, right? You guys, Mike did the style guide for that. And for those of you guys who don't know what a style guide is, it's what other artists refer to in order to get proportions right, to get detail right. How many creatures and characters, Mike, do you think you drew for that style guide? Because it was pretty thick.
Gosh, that's a good question, because a lot of it included vehicles, and there was a lot involved. And it wasn't even so much creating the characters as it was all the revisions that went along with it, because some of the characters didn't exist. But that was the fun part, because there's really no art direction on it. But pre-existing characters, Han Solo and Leia, they were had to be very specific and really had to be on model. But yeah, it was a fun gig, I knew my buddy over there at Lucasfilm for quite a few years, and we'd worked together over here at an agency called Seinegers, and then he moved up there with his wife, and then he got a great gig because he was over there living on the ranch as well, or I think he was living on the ranch. But they called me up and says, "Hey, Mike, I got this cool style guy. Are you interested?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a fun gig, because you can create all of your all the characters for us." And then I was like, "Oh, all right." So.
And you worked on that for how long?
Quite a few months. Yeah, we worked on it for a long time. But about the same amount of time that you and I worked on Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. That was a good project. If you guys aren't familiar with Gulliver's Travels, the 2009 version of the film with Jack Black, Mike and I actually had the pleasure of doing the artwork that was actually in the film. Specifically, if you guys are familiar with the film, Jack Black obviously is lying that he's done pretty much about everything. So Mike and I had to come up with these concepts where Jack Black was in all of these movies and plays and everything else. So it was pretty absurd. Anyhow, we worked on so many of those paintings that are actually, the artwork is actually in the film. So if you see the film, it's pretty prominent. And so if you guys get to see that, you'll see all the artwork that we did for that film. It was a fun project.
Yeah, it was. And I think a lot of it was also, didn't you do a lot of the lighting for all the cinematography for where the cameras were going to go and how the lighting was going to work?
Yeah, we did.
I think you did a lot of that.
Like what do they call a rig.
Right.
Where all the billboards and lighting was going to go. So it was it was a pretty intensive
fun gig.
Fun gig, yeah.
Yeah, we'd just go over there at a place called Gordon Biersch and sit there and drink beer and then design all the sets. We were there for hours sometimes.
Also, if you guys like board games, Mike and I worked on some board games you guys might be familiar with. We did a clue game, right? Mike, we did a clue game for Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, right?
Game of Thrones. We did a clue game for Penny Dreadful.
Yeah.
We did the 75th anniversary pop-up for Wizard of Oz, and that's a Monopoly game. That was interesting, having to work in 3 dimension. And we also did Zelda Zelda, if you guys remember. With the,
Legend of Zelda, that's
yeah,
right.
Legend of Zelda, right? So you can actually find those at Barnes and Noble if you guys are curious to see the artwork.
Okay, so this just gives you kind of like an idea of how I kind of just
Yeah,
what I'm thinking. I'm just kind of designing, the thumbnail and you know, um, the placement. And of course, on this board, I did pretty much the same thing. I just kind of started off with a big round pumpkin shape and one linear line going straight up and down. And I said, all right, that's all I'll border it. We'll just, do a 15 by 20. And I was like, all right, let's see where the drawing takes us.
wow, that's incredible. So are you set up to paint, Mike? Are you good to go? Yeah. Oh, awesome.
So I can pan down here and we can show you guys. Now I'll just use this right here as the for the airbrush and stuff like that.
Now,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't listening.
I'm curious. Are you going to fix this, or are you just going to go ahead and straight paint on it?
I'll paint on it raw. Normally I'd probably hit it with a workable, but depends upon what medium you're using. If we use watercolors, or you're going to use acrylics, or if you're going to use dyes or airbrush paints, or if you're just going to use whatever it is. So in this case, it's acrylic. So what happens is once I spray the acrylic onto the graphite itself, it pretty much seals the drawing. So if I go back on top of this with color pencil or white pencil, you don't have to worry about too many blooms.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so I'll go ahead and get started. Unless anybody has any questions, I can certainly answer anything, or you can, Otto, and while I'm working, and go from there. I'll just show you kind of this, maybe I'll just hand over here with the camera just to show you what I'm working on. Oops, sorry. It was running high. Yeah.
As you.
My studio, in case anybody's looking at, let's see, but so this is how I usually set everything up right next to my drafting table. I'll give you guys kind of a long shot and just to show you. Yeah, so this table goes flat, or it completely rotates 360 degrees. It's a poker table. It's a great
Hydraulic.
Yeah, I've had this since college. So I'm going to pan towards you just to show the system we have, and then you want to,
Yeah, sure.
Unless you want to sit there.
Yeah.
We can just pan through here. So Halloween, so don't mind my giant spiders outside my office window. And that's give you kind of. It's just the chair squeeze like that.
Mike, so we have a question. You do that, that CO2 tank, right? Because Daniel Gonzalez is asking, I'm guessing that tank was for your airbrush, right? No compressor.
Yep. No compressors, too noisy.
That's right. So
they do have silent compressors, but
yeah, you know what? You can use Daniel, you can use a compressor if you want, but Mike and I have changed over to CO2 tanks, and that's because they're completely moisture free.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't have any worries about water or oil contaminating your air and your paint. So that's why we switched over to CO2 tanks.
Yeah, you can buy silent compressors too, but yeah, it's like $20-30 to fill it up. It's not a big deal. So
yeah, it's not a big deal. Just keep in mind that you can't go crazy with the CO2 because it does deplete oxygen. So if you're in a tiny room and you just start going nuts with the airbrush, you're going to start feeling a little woozy. And so just know that you don't want to use big gun with CO2. Plus, it would freeze your air hose if you decide to shoot out that much CO2 quickly.
But the good thing is if you take off your brush, it's really fun to chase your dog around the apartment. I mean, the studio, and because just like, what's that weird cold air coming from? That's just that's all. Multi-purpose. All right. So what I'm doing now is this is my Frisket. A lot of times I wouldn't even use a Frisket. I just pretty much just paint the background out like with gesso, but this just saves. And then the torn edges are nice because you can create nice texture along the edges as well. You can bend it and carve it.
Yeah,
so So without it, you can come along the edge like this. So depends what look you like. If you want super clean, you've got on this side, or if you want something that's got a little bit of a glow to it. Now we're gonna say Otto?
No, I was just gonna say that, yeah, you come in with all kinds of crazy media, and also the fact that you worked on that UArt paper, which is a sanded paper.
Yeah.
And so, again, you can work, many artists work on this cold pressing. I know Ron Mansma, who's, I think he's in Ohio. I'm not sure, but he's a wonderful artist. He loves to work on this crescent board. And, but I'm glad you were at least able to try out that UArt.
No, it works really well. I should probably show you that little demo when you brought it over. And I found that one of them, just for the fact that I was going to use so much color pencil on it, there's the reason why I went with the cold press.
Yeah.
And then I tried erasing on it just to see what would it be like. And yeah, it's a great medium, but it doesn't seem to be.
It takes more effort to get. It takes more effort, I think, to get a little sharper. I mean, there's different sanded papers, but yeah, crescent, especially when it's not gessoed, does suck up some of that pigment pretty good.
Yeah. And then I just kind of have just a kind of an overall tone, and you can start to see we're starting to get our little dude here.
Yeah. And again, you're using Liquitex acrylic right now, right?
Just Liquitex acrylic, right?
Yeah. Did you mix this color, Mike, or did you pretty much using straight out of the tube?
Straight out of the tube.
What is it? You know?
Yeah, it is red. No, orange. It's actually just a lot of water and a little bit of cadmium red.
Cadmium red.
I know it looks really orange.
Yeah.
I know it's
Wow.
If you put it right here, and I'll put the camera to it, and you can kind of see.
Yeah,
it's actually yeah. So
wow.
And then we'll go back and with a little bit of aquaviolet afterwards. And so the first thing I want to do is I just want to kind of get just some of the worms in here. And I like the overspray going onto the face, because the face is going to be pretty much a green blue.
Mike, can you just sneak that camera to your right just a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Sorry. It's
Yeah.
right there. There you go.
And I can level it like a little more like this if that helps.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So I'm doing the airbrush right now. As I'm going along all those areas, this core shadows I created, and I'm just trying to give it as much depth as I possibly can.
Yeah. We've got a question from Christopher Clark. He says, "How are you using an airbrush without a respirator? Isn't it toxic to breathe in all that atomized paint?" You want to answer that? You want me to do that?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Otto. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So Christopher, the amount of paint and the PSI coming out of that airbrush is quite minimal, really.
Yeah.
And many of these paints now that we use to airbrush, some like the Doc Martens paint, which is the Hydrus paint, which is the watercolor, or Liquitex, many of them are very low toxicity. And so we definitely don't airbrush with many of the Liquitex paints are now cadmium free. So they still use CAD, but they're cadmium free. And so, again, you do want to put on a respirator if you're going to do some fair amount of airbrushing. But stuff like this at very low PSI, it's very rare that it atomizes just more than a few inches.
Yeah, this is like 12 PSI. And it's transparent, which means that not only is there not a lot of pigment in this, as you can see, it's really watered down. I mean, the water really just creates a really nice feeling of transparency, because what we'll do is we'll layer a couple layers on it with lots of water and then hit it with some color pencil and we're kind of off to the races and that's it.
Yeah. But you know, like I said, if you have any worries, go ahead and use a mask by all means.
Yeah, you won't get COVID from it. So,
Yeah.
Oh, all right. My kids are groaning at me. All right, now what I'm doing is I pulled the needle back and I'm letting it, funny, we're just talking about that, trying to particulate a little bit. And then we're getting this really nice sense of volume right here. Okay. And even though this is kind of a Skeletor face or skeleton face or something like that, I really want these worms in here. So when I come back with the cool greens and yellows and blues, it's gonna, you know, a lot of this will show right through it because of the fact that it's transparent.
You know, Mike, and I guess in one sense, this is very much like how some of the old masters paint, right? It's fat over lean, right? As you start adding layers, you're going a little more opaque. Am I right?
That's correct. That's exactly what we're doing. And by the way, this airbrush was really popular right around the turn of the century. It was airbrush. So
Actually, yeah, right.
Yeah, pumpkin monsters and
yeah,
that's right.
Well, you know what? But here's a fun fact. I guess Leonardo da Vinci is credited as the first pastelist.
Really?
Yeah, even though, you know, he wrote in his notes, I guess in one of his books, and gosh, I'm going blank on the French artist, Jean, I think I'm trying to remember his name, but he was the one who was experimenting with the pastiche, and Leonardo da Vinci had wrote in his notes that he had to get that recipe from this French artist, and he did. He started experimenting with it. So I guess they credit Leonardo da Vinci for being the first pastelist.
That's really interesting. Oh, Otto, I'm always learning something from you. All right, the next thing we'll do, I'm just going to add a couple washes really quickly. So, you know, I know everybody's like, oh, airbrush, but yeah, you actually paint once in a while too. So, so we come back in here, and it's just going to be like a Mars black, real simple, with a little bit of blue.
By the way, if anybody's working on sanded paper, I've used the airbrush on it, and it does work well, right? So if anybody's interested in actually experimenting with an airbrush on sanded papers for pastel, it does work. Bernard, do you have a question? Do you want to go ahead and put it in the chat, my friend?
Okay. So everybody starts to come together once we start getting these darks in here. And this, I wish I could show exactly how transparent this is. It looks really dark on the screen, but it really is. It really is light. I mean, there's a lot of light going actually through the paint and back into the and onto the board.
Well, Mike, you know, when you do more work on it, if you want, you can go ahead and send me a pic. I'll put it up on our website. And,
yeah, if you guys are interested, yeah. So now I create a little more, you know, it's just trying to get that orange to separate from the rest of the face. By the way, you don't have to use an airbrush too. I mean, it's the same technique. Airbrush for me, the reason why I use it most of the time is one, I've always liked airbrush. It's just been fun and it's just, but more importantly, it's fast, you know. And I know everything's being done these days digitally, but my experience has been that the studios now are going back towards traditional media.
Yep.
Everybody's burned out on seeing, you know, the same color palette, the same montages, the same look, that, you know, the two big heads in the sky and a small vignette at the bottom. And so they've been hiring a lot of illustrators lately, and it was nice to see.
Yeah.
Especially being one of them, but
I remember we were working, I mean, this was back when 2004, we're working on the Polar Express, right? Robert Zemeckis' Polar Express. And the deadlines, I remember we're painting with airbrush in one hand, dryer in the other.
oh God, I remember that. That's right. Yeah. Polar
Oh,
Express. That was a crazy gig, I have to admit. That was nuts. I remember going up to the meeting with Robert Zemeckis up in his studio up in was Cambria? I think it was Cambria back then. Really, really cool place. Real nice guy, easy to deal with. We went up there with the creative directors in the studio and just showed him our concepts, and he was really cool about everything. Just like, all right, guys, I love everything. Show it to me in a couple weeks. And we're like, wow, that was really easy. But yeah, it doesn't happen often. Usually everybody's got some kind of, but
Daniel Gonzalez says that's great news about analog art coming back and primarily an oil painter, so that makes me hopeful.
yeah.
Bernard Fallon says, how do you receive compensation for creating characters for movies and TVs? It's usually peanuts. It's usually no, you
Yeah.
Mike throughout his, you know, the years has established a project rate or a per sketch rate. And so sometimes it just depends on the project, and I mean, there's so many things to think about. One is the thumbnails, right?
Yeah.
Two is the actual concept work. You know, and then you have to think about certain contracts. You know, is it fully non-disclosure, or are they buying the whole workout? So there's
That's
a
right.
lot of parameters when it comes to pricing work in film and television.
Every project's different. That's the point. And I think it confuses, especially a lot of kids getting into the business. Like, well, what do I charge for this? It all depends. I mean, if it's an independent film, you're not going to get anywhere near as much. If it's a studio hiring you because it's a spec project, that's going to be a different price. If it's a big gaming company that have deep pockets, they're most of the time they're more than willing to pay, you know, your rate.
Right.
And then there's also like, okay, when can I show this? When can I put this in my portfolio? You know, what's in the non-disclosure agreement? So make sure you read that really well. And then when can I show the artwork? And then, you know, do I have rights to go ahead and put this into a book? What kind of, you know, these are all the things that you have to take into consideration before you take the gig on.
Bernard Fallon says, do you use an illustration lawyer? Mike, you want to answer that?
Yeah, no, you can. I mean, a regular attorney's fine, but so far I've been just fine without one. So, you know, if it comes to rewriting the contract or something like that, you just, you know, there's a couple sample contracts that are available through I think there's also some through the Society of Illustration, if I remember correctly, and the Graphic Artists Guild, and they have some standard contracts that you can use to springboard off of.
Yeah, another thing too is, you know, when we started illustration work, you know, the high-tech stuff was having a good copier. We didn't,
Oh yeah,
you know, resource books. That was a huge thing. Now you can go onto the internet to find almost just about anything, contracts, reference, all that good stuff. Back in the day, you know, you had to scour through stuff. You had, you know, a mile high of stock books, right?
Yeah, you had morgues back in the day.
Yeah, morgues. That's right.
No, you did.
Of just all these books for reference, and you had to be almost like a librarian when it came to filing this type of reference.
Yeah, or you're like most other illustrators, like people like Strews and stuff like that. They don't rely, because they have to worry about. I remember again when I took his workshop when I was a kid. Again, I was in my 20s, and it was many moons ago. But I remember him saying he got sued because he used some guy that he took off a magazine who was like, I don't know, he was parasailing or something, and the guy was like, "Hey, that's me," and then he sued him. It's like, you can't use me for that. But yeah, he shoots all of his own reference. And one of the first things he always said, and I always took it to heart, was the fact that he goes, because he's a great draftsman, but he doesn't do this. He has to have reference. There's certain artists that go out there and they do extraordinary work, kind of like Struzen does, but he's got to have reference. He can't manufacture things out of his imagination. So he goes, you could do the most extraordinary painting in the world, and then all of a sudden you look down and then 2 or 3 fingers are wonky and everybody goes, wow, what's wrong with that painting? Look at that hand. And no one will look at anything else.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, you could be you could be working on all kinds of projects and for years. And what do they say, Mike? You're only good as your last job.
Yeah, that's true. You mess up once and they'll never hire you again, anybody. And then the word gets around town. So I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I've never missed a deadline, whether it was whether I had a cold or fever or strep throat. Just like, figure it out, just get it done, or die. So if you want to do this for a living anyways,
and it's surprisingly, I mean, when we think about fine art and then we think about illustrators, there's a fine line there, where, when you think about illustrators, where the illustrators are artists, right? When we talk about NC Wyeth, right? Or we talk about Norman Rockwell or Dean Cornwell, or do you consider them illustrators? Do you consider them artists, right? So, they're all artists.
Those guys do pumpkins, though. I mean, that's what
and so it's just amazing to see how much fine art there is in illustration and how much illustration there is in fine art.
Yeah. So the next one I'll be doing on this one will be in pastels.
Oh, I want to see that.
All right. Okay, I've just got some of the darker values. I'm going to start to refine a little bit, pull back a little bit. And I'll bring it forward a little so you can see it.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, it's starting to look a little bit like a diseased burqa, but what's like, I don't know what this dude's got around his head, but we'll pull off the pumpkin thing.
It's all layers, right? It's all layers.
Oh, layers. And like I said before, a lot of times it's usually airbrush just to knock stuff in here.
I think, gosh, I have notes. From back from 1998 because I'm an avid note taker, and so I remember being
really?
I remember it was back at 1998 taking a class with Mike. And one of the important things,
1998, Jesus.
Yeah, I know. And one of the things that really that sunk in was how important it is to push and pull, right? And I was like, push and pull. Okay, so and I remember how you were talking about warms and cools, and how you can push something with a cool and pull something with a warm, or you can pull it with a sharp edge, or you can push it with a soft edge, and so again, that I took with me with my fine art. So it's I think for any aspiring artist to think of that, think about how you can pull things forward with warm colors and push things back with cooler colors. And in essence, that's what you're doing. You're just kind of pushing and pulling your drawing until it creates form.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I look at your extraordinary paintings, Otto. I mean, I'm just always constantly, stunned by it. You can see where I'm always kind of mystified when I look at how tight yours are versus, kind of like the stuff that I'm doing, which is completely, I mean, it's all artwork, it's all painting, but I find it a complete mystery. And then I look at the hours you put in there and how you layer everything, and it's extraordinary. You know, where you can take it just by understanding those same principles of where to push, where to pull. And then, like you have, look at your paintings and they have like, extraordinary control over value, and your composition's always like right on the money. It's they're gorgeous pieces to look at, but
Thank you.
it all comes from that, though. It all comes from understanding that that's those same principles. So,
Julie Freeman, phenomenal artist. She has a question for you.
okay.
She's coming in from all the way from New Zealand, and she asks, with all those deadlines over the years, does it affect your enjoyment of art?
Oh, I hate it. It's like, that's a tough question. It depends on your client and what the project is. You got a great client, got a great project, you're gonna have a great time. I'm working on a cool one right now with Bethesda Games and folks over at AV Squad for a cool game project. And it's a lot of fun to work on. But some of the stuff, like I've had the deadlines can be really brutal in this business. I mean, literally you're producing sometimes 20, 30, 40 sketches in a week and a half, tight renderings. You can go on my site and look at them, and those will kill you. It's just brutal. I just came off of one where I didn't get the project out to almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and and then you've got another project right behind it. So in that sense, you can get a little jaded and like, oh, that's it. I'm done with this. I've had it. Then you take a breather, and a little time goes by, and a glass of wine or two, and you're like, all right, I can do another one. So, you know.
No, I honestly, Mike, I don't know how you pull it off. I mean, how many years did I spend doing illustration composite work, and of course nowhere near your level. And I was just, man, I really asked myself, how does Mike do this? I mean, it's just your machine, man. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Oh, like you said, Otto, it really is mileage. It's been doing this for so long that it's just almost become second nature. If I was just starting off, I couldn't even imagine, actually. I'd be completely mortified. I mean, you've got a gig, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, we need 20 or 30 sketches, and they have a cast of anywhere from 10 to 18 people, and they want likeness. So it's like, the orange is the new black, and you got 18 people, 18 characters in, or it's something horrible like Gossip Girls or something like that. Or you're like, oh God, it sucks the life right out of you. So those are the tough ones to do, but yeah, it's, you have to realize it is what it is. I mean, my job is, when I'm doing this stuff, is for pleasure, and I enjoy it because this is a project, you and I are working on. But your job as a commercial artist is to solve problems, and that's what they're hiring you for, is to visually solve something that they can't do by themselves. So that's why you can charge what you charge and make the money that you make, is because there's not a lot of people that can do that. So
what are you focusing on right now, Mike? I know that you're hitting some of those shadows. Is there a certain color you're focusing on, or is it what is it you're focusing on at this point with the paint?
Well, right now, if you look really, let's get out of focus. I'm just right now the warm palette, just working my warm palette right now, which is just the oranges, and then bringing in some of the greens right through here. And I'm going to start the cools on the inside of the face, and then I'll come back in and we'll hit some more of the warms around the pumpkin. I don't want to go too much darker than this because we're hitting with some colored pencil, and it's a transparent technique. Yeah, it should look pretty cool by the time we're done. So I started tricking the warms, and then what I do is I just incorporate them along with the cools. So anything that splashes over the oranges and stuff, it just works to create more depth in your painting. Because it's not like what you do, Otto. You have everything planned out when you're doing a painting. I mean, I've seen your setup and everything else. This is a little bit different. This is almost, in some ways, happenstance and letting, cools blend into it or splatter hit it, or the airbrush spits up on you and you're like, nah, I can use that,
And funny you should mention that, Mike, because actually I've been playing around with this style as an underpainting, and it's actually fun. It's actually a little liberating.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah. So you guys just take note, you guys can put pastel right over this if you wanted to. You can do it on the crescent board, you can do it on just about any board that can take the airbrush and this style of underpainting. So, I'm having more fun with it. Daniel Gonzalez says, is your Mad Monster Bash game a card game and with lots of illustrations of monsters? Daniel, yes, it's going to be.
Yes, it is.
It's going to be a fun game. It's it's a family game, and so it's got trivia. It's got it's a goofy game, and
it's got everything.
But the board game itself is going to be about a 20 by 20 inch board game, and Mike is working on the illustration for that. We'll probably be going through Kickstarter in a couple months here, so it's coming together nicely. It's been a wonderful collaboration between both of our families and friends, giving us input and giving us ideas to help this game evolve into something that's much more fun to play. So we really appreciate all the help we've been getting from our family, like David and Amelie and Josette and Everest, everybody who's been involved with this game for the past 5 years, right, Mike?
Yeah, we've been working on it for a long time. Yeah.
So we just
it's pretty much been your brainchild. I mean, you came up with the whole concept and the idea, and we've been doing so many games together. We were like, let's just do our own game. And when you first sent me that first premise and you sent me your draft, I was like, oh, all right. And I think we started a company, like we've got
Mad Monster Company.
Yeah. And just a few weeks later. So we were on top of it. Although again, that was start off a year ago.
I know, exactly.
So that's mostly my fault. I take all the responsibility for that. So.
I say it's been a work in progress because, like I said, we've got a lot of projects, that have that we've had to work on, and so intermittently we've been working on the game. So Daniel, we're excited to bring it out in a few months, and if you guys are interested, you can go on Instagram to Mad Monster Bash. You can follow us. We'll get you we'll get you guys caught up on what we're working on. We will kind of give a sneak preview to some of the art and in the next coming weeks. So we'll tell you all about it. It's I mean, the kids have been playing it. I've got my two boys, Diego and Miguel, who are 9 and 6, and they love it. So and my kids are brutally honest. So if they don't like something, they'll let you know. So that's a good sign.
Diego created some pretty cool monsters for it. So
yeah, he did. Diego, it's funny. I mean, Diego. He's been looking at Mike's work and it's just awed by it. So he's really into monsters, and I got to show you some of his newer stuff, Mike. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, I can't wait to see it, man.
Okay, so Sylvia, how you doing, Sylvia? Coming in from Portugal. Good to have you. I know it's it's like 4 in the morning over there. So thank you for joining in. Sylvia, he's using Liquitex acrylics. They're really thin down. And Mike will use a brush or airbrush, and he'll do layer after layer. And then after this, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, you like to put gesso over this, right? You start painting actually with pigment and gesso. And
I'll use the gesso pretty much just for the highlights.
Oh, for the highlights. Okay, sorry, for the highlights, and then but you'll also use colored pencil and stuff. Yeah,
we'll use
the paper itself. Sylvia is it's actually an illustration board. It's a crescent board, cold press versus hot press. Hot press is quite smooth. Cold press has a nice texture to it. It takes the pencil on it really well. He just used a number 2 pencil, to do the initial drawing on the crescent board. I believe it's a 200. You can get it single ply or double ply. I recommend that if you're going to be using any kind of web media, that you get the double ply. It's thicker. You get these in 50 by 20 boards. You can get them bigger too. I think they're over 30 by 40 or something like that inches. I don't know their exact size, but they do come in different sizes. And illustration board is can take a beating, so it's a good board to work on.
So far, I've really pretty much just used complements on this. It's really, orange and blue, really straightforward. A lot of the subtlety and a lot of the sort of the transitional colors and shapes will come from the color pencil, especially when I start defining some of these shapes, like like the highlights across the center of the face, and of course as they drift backwards, they'll get darker. But I just guys, kids are beating on each other. Are you guys hitting the heavy bag? Oh. Okay, well, all right.
So Mike, I noticed that on your Instagram, a lot of people are asking, hey, are you gonna teach a class like this in the near future? Is that something you think you might?
I am going to. Yeah, we've been working on, actually, my wife has been helping with that. She's gonna take control over all that stuff. So yeah, we will eventually. So first priority is gonna be the books. We're so close. We've got all the images, and my daughter, who's 18, who just finished off her first novel, and she's a sublime writer. Not to brag because I'm her dad, but
an amazing artist herself. So
and an amazing artist as well. But we're going to collaborate together. So my wife and I and my daughter, and she came up with a really great premise for the How to Draw book on designing characters, and we're all going to work on it together. So it's a real family affair.
Awesome.
And like I said before, all this, you don't need an airbrush. This is just because it's faster. Okay. Looks really bleached out from where you guys are. Let me see if I can. Does that help with the lighting?
What's that, Mike?
I was just wondering if that helped with the lighting at all.
Oh, we can see it pretty sharp.
Oh, okay.
So just to let you, Mike, so that you know, Mike, there's no hurry. We're about 10 minutes from the top of the hour here.
Okay.
So, if you want, do you want to start taking questions from?
I'll keep drawing and taking questions, and you guys can ask whatever you like, and then I'll just, because I'm about to hit some color pencil on this, and
okay. Yeah. Feel free to go over if you want. It's not a big deal. So take all the time you want. You guys, we're going to go ahead. If you guys want to ask a question now, we're going to do open Q&A. So if you guys want to mute yourselves and ask a question, just after you ask the question, if you go ahead and mute yourselves again.
Hey, Mike, this is Daniel. I wondered if there's a studio that you really like to work with, that they did something that was really cool, kind of unique of a studio to treat an artist in a cool way or something.
I got to tell you, I'm really happy with almost most of the studios I've worked with. They're all really, really good folks. There's an agency called Bond, which I like working for, and there's AV Squad and Works LA, and I mean the list goes on for a lot of the agencies and studios. I like to work with the folks at Warner Brothers. I like working with the folks at Paramount, HBO, do some stuff for the folks at Netflix. I mean, it goes on and on. So I guess it really comes down to really is the folks are all pretty good. I mean, they're all great to work with. It's what makes the project fun is whatever it is. I like working on sci-fi adventure stuff. We just finished off a whole campaign for Aquaman, which was kind of fun. We did some stuff we did a lot of stuff for, Suicide Squad.
That's right.
Suicide Squad. And I seem to get a lot of those movies. So yeah, I have to say, I wouldn't say one specific studio because they're all pretty good folks to work with. Again, it really depends upon the project. And we did a lot of cool stuff for Dune. We did a lot of really fun kind of concept sketches because we couldn't get any of the production art. Everybody kept it pretty close to their chest. So we had to make up a lot of the stuff because we didn't have any access to it. It was fun because we weren't really confined by anything, and the studio wouldn't give any reference. So we pretty much just had to come up with really interesting and exciting images, and they gave me a lot of freedom to do that, and it was fun to work on. All right, I'm going to pull back a little bit so you guys can see it. This helps.
Yeah.
The other thing, nice thing about working on an airbrush and working transparent is the paint dries immediately. There's no lag time, and that's really nice because you can get right after you airbrush, you can get right into your color pencil and you can start digging in. And working with colored pencils on these kind of pieces are always a lot of fun.
Mike, do you mind adjusting your light just a little bit? Looks like we're getting a bit of a shadow.
Yeah. All right, let me turn it back on. Sorry about the sort of that.
That's okay.
Jerky motion of everything, but let me get the other light back on. How's that?
Oh, that's fine. We're getting a little bit more light on the left side than we are up at the top. But
Sure, can I adjust that?
there you go. That helps.
All right, I can make it a little bit brighter too. These are all color corrected, so.
So a question for you, Mike, is how do you know when to stop?
That's a good question. I don't know. There's, I think like all artists, you have a tendency to noodle everything to death. It's really easy to do that. For me, it works out really well because usually my deadlines don't allow me to to sit there and noodle something. I get a very defined amount of time to work on a project, and then it's got to go out at a certain day. But stuff like this, I don't know. Sometimes you just find yourself noodling all sorts of crazy stuff, and that's a good question. I think just until it looks finished, you look at it, you're like, yeah, all right, it's time to move on.
Hey, Mike, this is Daniel again.
What's up, Daniel?
I was just wondering if you find that there's a lot of pressure, especially during this time of year, to create a really nice original holiday card of you and your family.
I hate to say this, but we're like one of those families that don't send out cards. Not like Otto, where he's sitting in a big plush red chair and a glass of wine.
In my smock.
In your smock, his red velvet smoking jacket.
Oh, that's great.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, we don't. We're not card folk.
We're not card folk.
All right, now we're just getting some nice values going on, some wicked textures, and all right. We're not card folk, are we? No, we're not. Like,
Red smoking, red velvet smoking.
did you find him?
He said
Let me see. I just gotta find something really quickly here. One second.
Sure. Doris Birch says, this has been very interesting. Thank you, Mike. Oh, Chris Dillian says, your art would make great tattoos. Do you worry about tattoo artists ripping your designs?
Oh no, they're more than welcome. They knock themselves out. I got one that was really interesting in the mail from was it Fulton Prison. This guy went and took something out of the zombie book and had his whole back tattooed with a bamboo stick and a sharpened piece of
Oh, man.
I forgot what it was. He used it wasn't like a ballpoint pen, it was something out of this really sharp. And it took him about 4 months. And then he finally sent me the he's like, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then he's got the, he's got the eye drop underneath his eye. And I'm like, yeah, you did a great job. Like, you are really talented and I think you're amazing. I just thought you'd appreciate it. Oh, I dig it. All right, so next we're gonna come in here, toothbrush.
Oh, can we get a, oh, wow. Can we get a close up of that, Mike? That's awesome.
Okay. So how's that? Is that working?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me put it over here. So I'll splatter all that cool looking texture on here. And I don't really care where it goes. You can go anywhere it wants to. So, off the borders or the borders of the shadows. And then I'll come back in with this paper towel and you let it set just for a second. And it creates this really cool looking texture and these little water spots that really give it that wonderful organic feel to it. Now add some more. So for like what I'll do is like normally is like, especially if it's on the face, since it's all blue, I'll come back in with a warm, like a yellow or an orange, and then the yellow and the orange will come back in with a blue. And it's just a really kind of fun way or interesting way to tie everything together. And it adds all this really cool texture to it. You can go ahead, it's okay.
Yeah, Doris Birch says you can use a toothbrush and wet pastel for sea spray too. Yeah, a lot of artists do that.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Sea spray. I think I've done that before a few times. When I think about it.
You can wet a pastel and flick it.
Yep. Okay. Also, another way you can also, once you're finalize your acrylic, and if you think you need more texture, but you want to take out of it, you want something that's a little more reductive, you can take a little bit of Windex and with a little bit of water and with a toothbrush, and what it'll actually do, and it works better on a gessoed surface, but it will work on a raw board. And what it will do is it'll actually let it sit there for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, and it'll actually eat through the acrylic, and then you dab it off and it leaves these really beautiful pulling sort of marks on your painting or your illustration. What are you holding up, guys? All right.
Mike, do you mind getting in a little close just so we can see it? Because right now it's showing like really black. There we go. Okay, we just want to kind of see those marks that you put in there.
Oh, okay, yeah, here.
You guys, the speckling, awesome.
Let me add some more just to show you. Because I'm of the opinion that you can't have enough speckles. All right, so I'll come back in here with a little bit of yellow.
Christopher Clark says, can Mike just keep painting and finish this illustration on the Zoom? I've got a hot drink. I've got a hot drink and I'm settled in for the night watching him work. You know what, you guys, you know what, normally our theme Thursdays run from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But Mike, you are free and you want to, you know, if you're free to work, as long as you want to work, we appreciate everybody being here for this special episode of Theme Thursday. Again, we're here every other Thursday. Our next Theme Thursday, by the way, is on November 4th. And we have Daniel Gonzalez himself. He's here. Daniel Gonzalez will be our featured member. He is going to do Calaveras on November 4th, since Day of the Dead is just a couple of days ahead of that. So so Daniel Gonzalez will be our spotlight for the November 4 Theme Thursday. So we hope you guys can be there with us on November 4. Again, you can always check our calendar at psscwebsite.org if you want to see what coming events we've got going on. And we have a lot going on, and we do have our brick and mortar show coming up at the what is it called? I'm going blank. Thank you. It's here, I've got it. Let me pull this up. It's in Palos Verdes. I'm so sorry. We'll post it on our website. It's on our website. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, we've got our show coming up, and it opens on November 10th. Chris, you want to help me out here? Chris Dillians?
Yeah, it's at in Palos Verdes Peninsula Center, the old Lofts place, Suite 117.
Thank you.
Opens on the 10th and runs through the end of the month.
Yeah.
November.
Yeah, so that's our members only show. We've got a lot of great pieces that will be hung. So if you'd like to join us for the reception, that reception is on Saturday, November 13th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. We'll have our award ceremony that day as well. And we'll be showcasing our members. So please join us. Again, Mike is going to keep on working until he decides he's had enough. And you guys are more than welcome to stick around with us if you guys like.
I'll continue for like another 10 or 15 minutes. I might get a little colored pencil if you guys would like to see it.
Yeah, sure. We'd love to see that.
And then I'll close up shop too as well. So
by the way, you can revisit this video at on our YouTube channel. Just look up Pastel Society of Southern California on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more educational videos like this one, you go ahead and subscribe.
Oh, this is educational?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay. Just kidding.
Heck yeah, it is.
Like, oh yeah, okay. I learned something tonight.
Yeah.
Butkus is doing a demo. Go.
Well, I would say, Mike, what would you think is, what advice can you give to any aspiring artists who want to get into the film and entertainment industry?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. Don't. You know, we were just talking about that today. And what do we say? I was like, you got out of this business and started doing beautiful paintings and pastels. And I was like, that's a path I wish I had taken.
It's like a little bit like The Godfather, right? They keep pulling me back in.
Yeah, that's no, it's a tough business because you got to have a really thick skin. You got to make lots of revisions, and again, if you don't want to be a visual problem solver for the industry, this is certainly not the place to be, because
Right.
Because it is, they change and revise absolutely everything. It's something you submit to the client, you're like, oh, they're gonna love this. This is beautiful. I spent a lot of time on it. Like, no. Let's go with the other one you did. No, that wasn't mine. They're like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, blame it on somebody else. Yeah, I remember one of my, gosh, it was when he first threw me in the deep end. I can't remember what show it was, and man, it was a crazy deadline. I remember it was like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was tired, but I had to, they were going to call me early in the morning, and they were going to have somebody pick up the sketches. I remember getting a call when they woke me up, right? Because they picked up the sketches. It must have been like noon. I was just gone.
Yeah.
And I get a call. Hey, this girl looks really horsey.
And then your wife's like, hey, Otto, why the long face?
Oh man, it's brutal. Like, oh, can you fix this? Like,
Oh, I know. It's, yeah. And you're like, no, I don't want to do this anymore.
no,
I'm going back to pastels. No, you're right. It's a brutal business because it's really unforgiving, and it's the deadlines are ridiculous, and yeah, it's one of the toughest forms, I think, of, if you want to become an illustrator, man, just do it like, Thomas Blackshear or Bernie Fuchs or Mark English. I mean, those are the paths you really want to follow. There's not like one Struzen out there. I mean, the days of, a lot of beautiful work by like folks like Dan Gouze and Bob Peak and stuff. Those they're coming back a little bit, but they'll never be that heyday. And those guys had a tremendous amount of respect. I mean, it's, again, like I said, it's coming back a little bit, but back in the 80s and even the early 90s, I mean, really was the heyday for some extraordinary artists and illustrators out there. And they had to rely on. I had a buddy of mine that took me under his wing named Bill Garland. I was going to Art Center, and I'd go to his house, and he's like, yeah, I'll stop and pick up some lunch and sit here and clean my brushes and whatever it was when I was in my 20s. And you did. And he was sitting there and he was banging out like all the, I remember those illustrated TV guide covers with all those black and white drawings for, A-Team and everything else. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. And he's like, yeah, but those, computers came in, and that was it. They pretty much shut off. Everything went to photo shoots and, photo montages. And all right, I'm gonna add a little colored pencil on this, just a little white to show you. So let's go back with the orange.
By the way, I'm going to put Mike's website on here on the chat. It's mikebutkus.pro. If you guys want to see some of his finished work, go to his website. I mean, it's just incredible.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, can I trouble you to zoom in just a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Just so I want to see people. I want people to see how you work these pencils, because it's something else.
Okay.
We have quite a few members who also belong to the Colored Pencil Society, so this is something for them to see. So which do you prefer to work on, Mike? A gessoed cold press board or a raw panel?
I have to go gessoed. It's, you can, as wonderful as the raw board is, you can really beat it up really well. But the gesso is, if I have to come back with revisions from a client, it's a lot easier to do it on a gessoed board. If they come back and they say, oh, okay, we want a head swap. So let's put this face on instead of the other one. So you have to paint this out. It's a lot easier to do that on a gessoed board than if you were on this. Like when we were doing the young Indiana Jones stuff, they came back with some revisions, and I was doing it on raw boards, and kind of knew I sort of knew better, but I was just really enjoying working on the raw board, and shouldn't have done that. And it was a nightmare. So we ended up having to, cut it out and then paste it back on. And it's better to stick with gesso.
And yeah, this was way before computers. I mean, that was that the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Jones,
Yeah. So I'll come back in. I'll add a couple more highlights, and we'll. This one right now, I'm just using just titanium white. So.
Hey, Mike, I've got a question pertaining to what you were just talking about. This is Chris.
Hey, Chris.
I typed it in the chat. I think it got missed. I was going to say, I'm really surprised to hear that the film and game industry is starting to use more, going back to more traditional media and artists to do that, because I assumed that everything was digital because it's infinitely faster, it's endlessly editable, and the clients want layered files as their deliverables, so they can, make different versions of posters and advertisements and marketing and whatever. And I'm very surprised to hear. I'm kind of like pleased to hear that they want more traditional media, but just kind of surprised. Can you talk more about that?
You made actually a really good point, which is I'm glad you brought it up. It's turning into, I've noticed, a sort of a hybrid. So classic example, I worked on a couple of projects just recently, and where it was, they want a traditional look. They want something that looked like it's not been generated. They keep going to say, like, we want it to look like it's hand painted, and we want something that's going to be really individual, and not just like, it's just any hack can go there with because it's amazing what you can do with a computer these days. I mean, it's really extraordinary. It doesn't take a vicious amount of talent, but with a little bit of talent and a little bit of time, you can produce some pretty amazing work. So what they're doing now is there's a lot of hybrids. So what they'll do is they'll hire you to do one piece, and then they'll have you do like the central characters, like this character, for example, they would hire me to do. Then they'll hire me to do the background. And they're like, okay, we want to make this a movie poster, but you know what the problem is? This has got to be a billboard. This has got to be a DVD cover. This has got to be, it's got to be a header for a website. We're going to use this for bus stands. We're going, the list goes on. So what they'll do is they'll hire you, but you'll paint like 10 different images. Now, the bad side of that is that you don't have one cohesive piece of art. So which means that when they combine this, unless you do it, and if it's done by somebody in-house or in the studios, they can really destroy your work. The good news is your billing goes up, exponentially, because of the fact that it's a lot more work to paint, 10 or 15 images than just one piece of art. So hopefully that answers your question. And that's been, by the way, I've done a lot of pieces like that. So where it's just been, a hybrid of, traditional illustration and then Photoshop.
By the way, Chris, I'm sorry I missed your question. I didn't scroll down far enough. I didn't see it. So thank you for asking that question.
So I'm doing right now is come back in here. I'm just doing a little bit of dry brush. And I'm just going to clean up some of these shapes. And then I'll come back in this with a black Prisma and literally start drawing back into the piece itself. Yeah, everything I pretty much use is you can use Prisma watercolors, but just your standard Prisma color pencils. Work beautifully on this. I know there's some better ones out there. Other artists keep talking to me about it, and have you tried it? And it's one of those things. I've got so many of them, and I've just been using them for so long that I just haven't broken out of that mold yet. Trying new things. So I'm gonna go back in here now with a black. I can find one. How's these guys in here? This will really make the piece pop as well. I can start defining some of these edges. And this looks okay. Cool. Okay, now I'm gonna come back and just continue the drawing. I start off with graphite, and you can see how when I come back in here with the black Prisma, it really cleans up these lines beautifully.
Is that a Verithin or a regular Prisma?
Just a
Prism color.
PC, yeah, Black Noir PC 935. Not sure. Is this showing up on the? Let me pull back a little bit.
There you go. That's nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys are still interested, I'll be posting the more finished version of this on my Facebook page or Instagram if you guys are interested.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm a huge fan of your Instagram, by the way. It's
Oh.
amazing. Every time I see another post, I don't know, my jaw drops. It's really inspiring.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I was telling Mike you should do a limited edition T-shirt of this painting. Especially around Halloween time.
We should do like a. Is that stuff showing up? You see? Can you guys see it? Okay. Okay. Still blurry. Go back a little farther. What's that? I think one of the things that I like about this type of illustration is the fact that it's a lot of drawing, and that's what I really enjoy is drawing more than anything else. And because it really isn't a painting in the sense of painting, because really it's just kind of a tinted drawing. I could go back there and do a fairly tight drawing or sketch of this, and then you go back into it again just to start cleaning edges up and little tone, a little value, creating little areas of interest. And I have a really bad habit of bouncing and jumping around when I'm drawing.
Yeah, pretty amazing what that little outlining does.
Yeah, it just makes the whole piece pop. As much as I hate using that expression, but it's true.
Well, Christopher asked, about how many hours total will you have put into this piece to finish the whole thing, you think?
Oh, well, if it's a traditional deadline, I'd probably have this, like say if it was due tomorrow afternoon, it'd be finished by tomorrow afternoon easily.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah. But some paintings can take you weeks, if not longer. So it depends upon how complex the project is.
So Mike, we just want to say thank you so much for doing this, because I know you're crazy busy with all the deadlines. So we appreciate that, that you did.
Oh, my
this
pleasure.
work.
I don't-
Exciting. This is a real special treat for those especially who have been following you and have been interested in getting to know Mike Butkus, the man. So so
All right.
this is a real treat, man. Thank you.
Oh, my
Great
pleasure.
demo, Mike.
All right, guys. Well, I think we'll go ahead and close up shop for now, but hopefully we can pull this up a little farther if you guys want to see, and then let's see if that makes. Is that still out of focus? Or are we?
Yeah, it just makes it dark. Can you go a little bit closer, maybe, or?
Yeah.
Great.
It's a Logitech, so I don't know how good this.
Yeah, it takes a little while to focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys, if everybody wants to thank Mike, go ahead and mute yourselves and wish him, give him a nice little applause. And thank you for sharing your skills,
Really
Mike.
appreciate it, Mike. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure,
Thank
guys.
you, Mike.
Anytime.
Yeah, this has been a really special episode of Theme Thursdays with Pastel Society of Southern California. Again, you can find us at psscwebsite.org. And you can find us on our YouTube channel. So this will be posted tomorrow for you guys. And as soon as we have, Mike wants to give us an image of this, we'll put it up. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. What a
Thank
great,
you,
Pleasure.
Mike.
Thank you,
what a
guys.
great
Thank
short
you,
portrait.
Mike. Incredible.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure. Okay, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much, my friend. Really appreciate it.
You got it, my friend. I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, guys, stay safe.